The most recent of my paintings have a little more variety in the color, but slight variety. What I mean by a slight variety is that I'm taking like different blues and slicing them in half and then adding another color to them. So we're getting that kind of the difference in the blues. Like you can see the blues in the back here. It's a darker version of that blue or a lighter version of this blue. And that's what part of what we're looking at is that we could also get into the shadows. The color shadows are getting more pronounced in some places and less pronounced in others. But the important thing is that the colors are all being mixed in pools of color. In other words, the pools of color is that I have a lot of colors in one making up. There's sometimes you'll see earth colors, and they're not made from earth pigments. They're made of combinations of colors, making into what some people might call mud, but they're not mud. They're really actually colors unto themselves. When we're really looking at the black line, I'm also using the black line and thinner in some areas where the black line is a little more transparent. So I want sometimes I want color to going into the black line. So I will use my Dr. Martin pigmented the pigmented India ink, and so that we get the colors that'll come out and go on top of the fluid acrylic, making another color. So as one color goes on top of another color, it's making another color, but it's a different medium. It's the thinner, more like the India ink that I use in the black. But again, I want the India ink not to be so black as it was in a lot of the earlier ones. I want the India ink to have a variety to the black. As I keep looking at what I'm doing, I'm realizing that I just have the need for more color, more pattern, more of these things that I can relate to as artistically, but also relate to as the part of the story, and the story of the pattern being the story of the people. In the pictures, the complexity of the people. The complexity of the people and the complexity of the color go together. And not to get the two confused, but to keep them in their proper place, which is where it works. If it doesn't work, then it doesn't do me any good, and it doesn't do the painting any good. For me, telling the story in an abstract manner has always been the ultimate challenge in these, but also telling the story of the types of people, the expressions, and all that should be there. When we're looking at these as pattern, they have to work as a pattern, and the colors have to work as a unit. So the repetition of color is still important to me, but maybe they'll be slightly different in each color pattern. Where you think it's the same, it's just slightly different. And sometimes when it's going over another color, like with the color India inks, we're looking at it in terms of creating another color that doesn't exist in the painting. The monumentality of the outside of the form, in other words, the outside lines of the shapes, creating the shapes, are very important. Still part of that monumental, I want a monumental feeling in the people. And the scale is still heroic proportions, and as we've gone into before. But what we're looking at is look at the variety on the green, on the bright green, and then it's lighter as it goes, and then it making casting a light green shadow behind the profile, one of the other, the 3/4 head, and it's very subtle, but it's there. Subtlety is more important in this part of the series as it's lending itself to the story of these conversations in the midday. When we were doing the conversations in the night, the black was very important in the background to bring up the shapes. But now the shapes are just as defined in the color backgrounds of the midday. So really, in the end, what I'm talking about is in the color pools is having 2 or 3 or 4 colors in the pool and coming up with another color, possibly adding white to it to bring in a blended quality, and sometimes bringing in a dark blue or like a Prussian blue, or sometimes just the black India ink and some color in the black India ink. So that's what we're talking about in this grouping here, and this grouping also talks about more of the texture of the paint, but still on thin. Still keeping the paint thin. It seems to be important in the whole series, whether it's night or day or afternoon or whatever's going on.